Well, hello everybody. Good morning.
Morning, Stuart.
And I've going to promote you, Vu, so that you can be a panelist. Robert, good morning. So we've got registered about 45 people. So Vu, have you got a slideshow that you want to share with us, or?
No, guys. I might just click on my webcam so you can see my face once it's my turn, and I'm happy to then just walk you through. Stuart, is my volume okay? Can you hear me all right?
The volume is perfect. Yes.
Fantastic. So yeah, I'm just happy to, speak to everybody via webcam. At least have some form of social interaction in this day and age, given everything that's going on. Perfect.
All right. What we'll do, the Chamber of Commerce, as everybody knows, that we're all a group of volunteers, and we've looked at what was going on with the coronavirus. We've been trying to share as much information coming out of both small business, the Office of Small Business, the CCIQ, and also the Office of Economic Development. But one of the things we did do straight away was we put a hibernation on all memberships for a period of 6 months. And so for any of those people who are members or want to join members as membership, we won't be taking any membership fees for 6 months, and everybody just holds over for that period, and that will be extended if things continue. So rather than waffle on about the Chamber of Commerce and anything, what I will do is I'll pass straight to Vu, because I'm very keen to hear, Vu, what you've got to say. I will stop my particular share, which is just the Chamber of Commerce, so that everyone can see you, and pass over to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming along.
Look, first of all, thank you, Stuart and the team, for inviting me along. I love the opportunity to be able to talk about what we do at Go1, but also, I guess, why we're a proudly Logan founded and headquartered company as well. Now, I think, Stuart, when we first booked this in, the world was a different place.
For sure.
So I will try and contextualize some of the discussion, and I don't want it to be a didactic sort of discussion where I give a presentation about our history. I also want to tell you our story, share it with you, and then open it up to questions. And obviously, given the world has changed around COVID-19/coronavirus, given everything that's going on at the moment, I'm also happy to answer any questions or share a bit about what we're doing in response to it as well. But if we can kick off, I guess to provide a bit of background on myself, my name is Tran, and I'm one of the co-founders of Go1.com. As I mentioned, we're founded and headquartered right here in Logan. I don't know if I'm breaking any rules right now. I'm actually talking to you. This is not my house. This is actually our Go1 offices. Social distancing is incredibly important, and physical distancing is incredibly important. And so from my end, I couldn't think of any other place where I'll get 700 square meters all to myself. Definitely don't get that at home. So in terms of a bit of background on Go1.com, so we've been around for as a company, we've been around for about 5 years. But as a founding team, we've been together since we were 16. So I turned 30. So we're now been together as a founding team for 14 years. I read our first business plan in grade 11 at school, where, everyone else was getting jobs at Woolies and Coles. And we decided, hey, why don't we go out there and build websites for people? So even though, what we do today has been around for 5 years, we've been in this location for about 12 in terms of our offices in Underwood. And as a team, we've been together, for that sort of 14-year period. Over that period of time, when we started off, we just started off building websites for people. And I'm sharing this journey because I think it's important to be able to, I guess, know where we came from. So while everyone else, as I said, was getting jobs at Woolies and Coles in grade 11 and 12, I wrote a business plan and gave it to my mates. And I said, hey, guys, Andrew, Chris, let's build websites and let's go sell this to small businesses. And so that's what we did. So throughout all year 11 and 12, instead of taking up a part-time job, we built websites. And after school, so at 4 o'clock, we would rock up and knock on one of your doors, and we would say, hi, Stu, my name's Vu, and we would love to sell your website. And, I hate the term, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's how we learned to hustle. That's how we learned to sell. Because I think every single person on this call who is involved in small business or runs a small business or a business of any kind will know that selling and sales is incredibly important. So that's what we did from the very early days. And throughout all year 11, 12, we worked our backsides off after school, on the weekends. And by the end of year 12, we actually had enough money to actually take out of the business. And I think we worked out that we each got $700 for 2 years' work, and we had enough to be able to pay for schoolies. So lesson learnt after over 2 years is that running your own business is hard, particularly during high school. And then we got to university, and all three of us actually had very, very different pathways. Andrew is probably he's my best mate, best man at my wedding, probably one of the smartest people I'll get to meet. His background is in economics. So he went to University of Queensland and became an economist, and somewhere along the way decided to find time to go do a Rhodes Scholarship and become a Rhodes Scholar. Chris, who was in the year below us in high school, Chris Agland, he went to Griffith University, became a lawyer, was Youth Ambassador to the United Nations a few years ago, so was addressing the UN on Australia's innovation policy. Last night, he was named in, and if Paulette's on the call, you might want to share this. So Chris was last night named in Forbes 30 under 30 for social entrepreneurship. So that's globally. So Greta Thunberg is on the same list as him for the 30 under 30 for Forbes.com. And Chris has a mountain of achievements, but his biggest one, the most memorable one for me was when we were 19 and he founded what's called the School Bag Program, where he sent, I think it was 10,000 school bags to Haiti after the earthquake. And I went to Bond University on the Gold Coast and did medicine, where afterwards I trained at the Royal Brisbane Hospital and became a general practitioner, where I actually practice here in Logan once a week. So overall, we have very, very diverse backgrounds. And while going to university, we grew our business because we're typical Generation Y. And our thoughts were, why not have our cake and eat it too? If Mark Zuckerberg was a university dropout, well, what can we do if we stayed in university and built our businesses? I think he's successful because of who he is, not because he dropped out of university. So we continued to build our business during university. And I think one of the important things for us is that this was about 2008 to 2011, 12. We had to navigate the GFC back then. And for me, this is very, very different. But what we learned during the GFC was incredibly important because by that stage, we probably had about 10, 15 staff. So not a massive business compared to where we are today, but a business where we had to pay people. We had to make payroll. And it really dawned on me, I think it was around about 2011, 2012, because that's when I think the GFC really hit Australia because we had the stimulus going on, etc. And that's when we're a B2B company. So we noticed people started to stop spending money even more after that stimulus ran out. And then so that was when it became incredibly difficult. That was when it dawned on me that as a 21-year-old back then, we were responsible for people who were the main breadwinners in their families. Of our 15 staff, we probably had about 5 who were the sole breadwinners. So we took the responsibility of owning and running our own business incredibly. It became incredibly impactful on us in terms of making sure that we did the right thing by our teams. And I think those principles that we had back then as a different business with only about a dozen to 15 staff, we're still maintaining today to a business with over 300 staff and 10 offices globally. So we grew that business over time, and one of the hardest things for us was to try and survive. And one of the things we had to do during that period was pivot. And you'll hear the word pivot used a lot in all sorts of businesses, but particularly in startups. And so we pivoted our business from building websites to transition to a whole bunch of different things. So if anyone here has ever used Salesforce before, we were one of the very first Salesforce implementation companies in Australia. So Salesforce were actually sending their customers to us as soon as they bought a license here in Australia. So we were doing implementations for ANZ, for News Limited, for a whole bunch of companies all over the country because we found this sort of amazing goose that was laying the golden egg. And we built up all these different companies between 2010 and 2014. But that diversification helped us survive, as people stopped spending money and as people looked to spend money in other places. But in 2014 and about 2015, we sat down. I'd finished university, Andrew finished his Rhodes Scholarship, and Chris finished his law degree. And as a team, we sat down and we said, does this really get us out of bed in the morning? Is this something that I can hang my hat on in 5 or 10 years' time? And the answer was, from all of us, with all honesty, was no. We loved our customers. We loved working with them. But the technology we were using wasn't ours. It was Salesforce's. It was someone else's technology. We were just building apps and websites and systems for people. We weren't doing anything that we felt had meaning or impact. So in 2014-15, we did a major pivot. So at that stage, we probably had about 30 staff. We probably had a few $1 million in revenue and probably about maybe even a few hundred customers. And we made the very hard decision to decide to change our entire business model, jettison probably 10 years worth of work, well, maybe not 10 years, 5 to 10 years worth of work, a large customer base, and really focus on the one thing that really got us out of bed in the morning, and that was learning. The reason why I bring up the story of all the backgrounds of all three of us is that we have 3 completely different career paths in terms of the professions that we chose. But in terms of what we love, we've always had a love of learning. So there was one fateful night where we sat down here in Underwood in our office and we started whiteboarding. We said, let's look at all of the products and services we've done. And let's choose the one that actually we're really passionate about. And that one happened to be the one with the least amount of revenue, the least number of customers, i.e. 1. And we said, this is the one that we could change the world with. So over the course of a few months, not a year, we started divesting ourselves and getting rid of, in a lot of circumstances, with no, like we lost millions of dollars of revenue, gave up millions of dollars of revenue, and just pivoted our business virtually overnight. But it was incredibly painful. I can tell you that, and this is pre-Banking Royal Commission days, I can tell you that I had about 8 credit cards, each with a $40,000 limit, where I was going to the bank. We're across the road from the Underwood Market here. There were weeks where I was going to Commonwealth Bank, doing a cash advance of $40,000 on my credit card, so 20% interest straight up, walking across to Westpac and putting that in to pay payroll. But that was the conviction we had around the business that we wanted to build from 2015 onwards. And so when you read the newspapers and you read the articles that we publish about how long Go1's been around for, yes, we've been around for 5 years, but as a founding team, we've been around for 10, 12, 14 years now. And the key thing that I'd come back to is that as a founding team, it's been really important for us in terms of what we've learned along that journey. So in terms of where we are today, because I probably haven't shared with you what Go1 actually does. So Go1.com is the world's largest marketplace or aggregator of workplace training. What we do is we think of us as your Netflix or Spotify for workplace learning. So whether it be compliance training through to professional development, we aggregate it all under the one roof and provide it to our customers under a single subscription. We primarily service the mid-market of, say, 500 to 1,000 employees through to enterprise and government. So we'll train everyone from retail brands like R.M. Williams all the way through to banks like ANZ, Westpac, Suncorp and Bank of Queensland, through to the entirety of the Queensland government and Delta Airlines in the United States. We train over 2 million people globally. I think actually it's a lot more than that now. I think we train more than every single university in Australia combined. To give you a bit of a stat, every 1.3 seconds, someone in the world is doing training on Go1. So in the course of this conversation today, we'll probably have about 2,000 to 3,000 people finish training. Right here, right now, during the lockdown, it's probably closer to triple that. And I'll share that in a tick as well. So for us as a company, learning is incredibly important. As I said, we provide a subscription to online learning that we provide to these large enterprise and corporate customers. The one thing that for us though is we don't create a single piece of training, right? And that's really important because let's think about how the world consumes content today. So if we think about our day-to-day lives, I've got people in my staff who have never purchased a CD before. And that terrifies me. And so when they come on board, I give them the analogy that back in the day, you used to go to an HMV or a Sanity and you'd purchase a CD. Then you had the advent of something like iTunes, where you created marketplaces where you would come and purchase it digitally a la carte. And then now we've got things like Spotify, where you purchase a single subscription for unlimited access to an almost unlimited number of courses. If you think about books, you'd go to a QBD or a Borders and you'd purchase a book. Then you had Amazon.com, where you could purchase any book, as a marketplace. You could purchase almost any book you'd want. And then you fast forward to today, where you've got Kindle and now Kindle Unlimited. For a single subscription, you get access to almost any single book you want. I don't have to tell you those parallels that exist with, say, movies and TV shows with, say, Netflix. So for us, that's where Go One fits in. That's where, for us, what we do is, instead of traditionally you'd go to a single training provider and source training, we wanted to be the marketplace, or the Amazon.com for training, where we bring together training providers from all over the world. And more importantly, we've moved towards a subscription where, for a single cost per employee, you get access to all the courses in our subscription. And the question I'll get asked is, well, how many courses are there, and where is it at? Well, the thing I'll tell you is, one of our earliest customers about 4 years ago was Foxtel. And when they purchased us, that subscription, that Netflix for Learning, had around about 200 courses in it. So it wasn't much of a Netflix for Learning with 200 courses. Fast forward to last year, that grew to about 5,000. And as of today, that's over 70,000 courses. Now, my question to you, and I'll ask this to you, Stu, is how much extra do you think Foxtel is paying today compared to 3 years ago for an extra access to an extra, say, 69,000 courses? How much extra do you think they're paying? Sorry, you're still muted, mate.
In line with inflation, I would assume. I don't know that do you charge any more at all?
You're right, nothing. We don't charge any more, because at the end of the day, when Netflix adds a new TV show, do you get charged more? When Spotify adds a new TV show, do you get charged more? No. So we're looking at the trends that are occurring in our day-to-day lives, because technology at work used to influence home. But our trend that we believe is home technology is now going to start influencing work, right? The expectation of the employee of choice and diversity in terms of what they do when it comes to reading, music, TV shows, and that I want it now and I want it when I need it, is incredibly important, which is why we exist as a product. So that's a little bit of background on what we do at Go One. As I said, we have about just under 300 staff now globally. We have 10 offices around the world. So here in Logan, Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth, Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh, London, Salt Lake City, San Francisco, and Johannesburg. So we've got offices all over the world, and we service. I always say to people, we service customers on every inhabited continent in the world. We're working on Antarctica at the moment, right? But for us, we've got a very, very strong long-term vision. Our goal is to be able to be responsible for training over 1 billion people globally. There's a quote from Archimedes that, and I'm paraphrasing here because part of it is, I'm pretty sure it was in Greek, where Archimedes, he said something along the lines of, give me a lever long enough and I will turn the world. And for us, our pure belief is that we think that that lever in which we can turn the world is education and learning. And we think that the fulcrum in which you pull that lever is technology. And so that's why we exist as a company today. Look, that's my sort of Cliff Notes version of our journey and what we do at Go One. But I don't want to just sit here and didactically tell you a story, because those who know me well who are on this call know I could speak for days. So, Stu, I might pass it back to you if there's any questions that you might have as a bit of a Q&A, and then open it up to the rest of the people on the call, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Look, for those that want to put up questions, please just type them in the chat. But I've got a particular question. In 2015, you had the whiteboard moment. You pivoted. What was your one client, and why was that what got you excited?
So the one client, they don't actually exist anymore. They were a mining services company. So, isn't that just your luck? You decide to reposition your whole business around a customer, and that customer disappears overnight. Look, it wasn't about the customer. I mean, it is about the customer. If I can digress, and then I'll come back to answer your question.
Sure.
customers are incredibly important to us, and you'll hear businesses say this all the time, but I guess I didn't tell you how we how we grew our business from a few kids in high school to having a few hundred before we pivoted. After we finished high school, and those of you who will remember or who have high school age kids, when you finish high school, you've got this massive gap between the end of year 12 and the start of university. It's ridiculous. It's like 3 months. And so our first, I think it was the week after we got back from schoolies, actually. So it was sometime in November, early December. Andrew and I decided, we need more customers. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go door to door and sell websites. Now, I'm sure there's people in this room, on this call, who have sold door to door before, but we hadn't, okay? So we went up and down Logan, Old Cleveland, and Wynnum Roads over the course of one day, walking. So drove, walk. We got chased out of, I'm sure you guys are much more hospitable. Everyone who's on this call is much more hospitable, but we got chased out of stores, yelled at, abused. As 18-year-olds, we didn't know what hawkers were. So when we saw a sign saying no hawkers, I had no idea what that meant. So it was a very steep learning curve. And we look back at that, we probably got rejected from about 500 to 600 businesses over the course of the day. It's pretty easy to door knock when all the businesses are on, one stretch of road. And it was about 5:30 in the afternoon. It was summer, so it was still bright. We were dejected. I still remember that emotion that I felt at the end of that day, being rejected, a few hundred times as an 18-year-old that's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, going, "We're going to build a business." And the very last door, we were going to go to a mate's place for a swim off Old Cleveland Road, and there's this little shop that was a hairdresser on Old Cleveland Road, and we said, "Look, we've been rejected 500 times. Do we really want to knock on this last door? Do we really do it?" And I don't know what it was, but something made us knock on that last door. We went in to the hairdresser and they told us to sod off, right? But the hairdresser came back to us and said, "Hey, look," he could hear us from behind, and he said, "At the end of the day, we actually do need a website." So he called us back in. He bought a website off us, and we could track our first 300 customers back to that conversation with him. I'm not joking. He introduced us to someone who introduced us to someone who introduced us to someone who introduced to someone. And one of those people that was introduced in that chain, in that sort of 6 degrees of separation, was actually one of the earliest investors in what Go1 is today. So that's just to show you the importance of, we value customers, because at the end of the day, you never know where a customer is going to take you. Now, to go back to your question, Stu, which I've now completely forgotten. What was it again?
In 2015.
Who was the customer?
You said the customer went away. That's fine. Yes. But what was it about that? What was it about that you went, "You know what? We're moving. Three
things. One is it was our product. So everything else we were selling was not our technology, not our product. So when I talk to people, whether it be patients about anxiety or whether I talk to my staff about what to prioritize, I focus on the 7 habits of highly effective people and the circle of concern and the circle of influence. And for me, having a product that you own and that you create is focusing on that circle of influence. Whereas if you are at the beck and call of someone else's product that you're implementing, like we were with Salesforce and a whole bunch of other technologies, it's great, but at the end of the day, good times will kind of disappear if it's out of your control. So it was about, one was about it being within our circle of influence, but 2 is our genuine passion for learning. As I said, we've got very diverse backgrounds, but we love learning, and I don't mean degrees. I just mean a genuine curiosity to want to know more, much like the 20 odd people who are on the call at the moment.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And personally, we were one of the training centers for QuickBooks.
Yep.
And absolutely can totally agree with your Salesforce scenario. It was a gravy train. They just kept sending us clients.
Yep.
But it wasn't our product.
Exactly. We used to send, so we had an office right on the water in Darling Harbour at that time, and we used to be across from Salesforce. We used to send their sales team a fully loaded bar every Friday afternoon, a fully loaded bar and a bartender, just so that they would keep sending us customers.
Yeah.
So, but we also realized that's a bottleneck and that's a potential risk for us. And so we had to change.
Yeah, it puts your business in the hands of somebody else, and one change at the senior management, and they say we don't like the smell of you, look of you, whatever, and that entire thing dries up.
Definitely.
So, and how did you discover the passion about training? Like, if you had, because you had a lot of different stuff going on, but for you, finding out that training was the passion, and that you could put a product behind it and aggregate it, like it's almost like the perfect storm. But that passion part.
So the passion is the first ingredient, because that's that's what drove us through probably the 1,000,001 problems we faced in the first, from 2015 through to today, right?
Yeah.
So passion is what still drives us today in navigating COVID-19/coronavirus. So I think that's the initial fuel, that baseload fuel that we're always going to have to need, right? But I think like I said to you right at the start, having something that gets us out of bed in the morning, and because over time, as we've built our teams, we've had to get them to buy into that idea of learning is how we change the world as well. Yep. So it was less about finding a passion and more about but finding a common passion between all three of us as founders. I have so much respect for anyone who's a solo founder, because we couldn't have gotten to where we are if we weren't a team of founders. I would not be here today doing what I do if we didn't have Andrew. I ride on their coattails is all I'd say.
Yeah. There is a question coming in from Mark Hocknell. You talk about customers. We must have a few different types, such as people that purchase training, businesses that provide training. Can you talk about how you create value for the various types of customers all at the same time?
Yep, I think that's really important. So I think let's think about the best way to think about Netflix, about Spotify, and about Go1 is as a marketplace, okay? If you think about it as a marketplace, then that's the easiest way to be able to kind of distill the value that we provide the different stakeholders. So as a marketplace, we have two sides to it, the suppliers and then the purchasers or the customers. So to Mark's question, the first one, businesses that provide the training, they're our suppliers, they're our partners. They are the people that we need to bring customers to purchase their content and use it. So the value we provide them is pretty simple. We help their brand get engagement by exposing them through our marketplace or our subscription. We provide them with a revenue share, because when Sony BMG puts their music into Spotify, they're definitely getting money for it. And the third part of it is that we're also giving them an audience that they otherwise wouldn't be able to reach, right? So if a content supplier engages with us and puts their content on our platform to make available through this subscription, they're getting a revenue share, but they're also reaching businesses they wouldn't be able to reach themselves. And the best example I can give you is that we've partnered with Are You OK Day to create a course on mental health awareness for Are You OK Day. We were able to give them instant access to over 2,000 businesses, of which about 500 here in Australia took it up in the first day. Now, they wouldn't be able to do that themselves. So it's reach and scale more so than anything else. To our customers, it's quite simple. Any problem you can think of in a business when it comes to employees is usually able to be addressed with a whole bunch of different common tools, but learning and training is one of the most important. The first is when it comes to risk, when it comes to compliance training. So everything from OH&S through to things like bullying and harassment, through to things like, if we look at coronavirus at the moment, Go1's usage has increased threefold in the last 2 months. Italy has never been in our top 10 consumers of Go1. It's now 4th.
Wow.
Why? Because we were the first people to go to market with a package of learning that was focused on COVID-19, because it wasn't just about COVID-19. It was about COVID-19 and understanding it, hand hygiene, OH&S, working from home training, how to manage effective teams from home. So there are all these different training courses that we didn't create, because as an aggregator, we just had to find people who had them and then combine them and provide them back to our customers. So the value we provide our customers is A, compliance training, B, professional development, which includes things like soft skills and technical skills. And I mean, there's 70,000 courses and we'll probably reach 100,000 soon. So it's all going to come back to training, providing that value back to the customer, but it's not training for the sake of training. It's training to solve problems. Like one of the big problems you're going to see in the next month is cybersecurity. And I can tell you now, based on the trends we're seeing and the live data I'm getting, a whole bunch of small businesses and large businesses are going to have a whole bunch of questions and requirements around cybersecurity as we work from home.
And will that be a compliance Will that tie into sort of compliance courses, or is it more sort of education for small business around that cybersecurity?
It's less around compliance and more about learning, if that makes sense. So, as an example, one of the courses that I did yesterday, because I was assigned it by our HR team, was anti-phishing emails. And when I saw phishing, I thought, great, it's me going out in the bay and catching some mackerel, because it's still mackerel season.
Dad jokes.
Yeah, that's right. But what it turns out to be is that I ended up having to go through, and it actually sent me, as part of the course, sent me a fake email later on during the day.
Nice.
That I almost fell for, right? So it's less around compliance. And this is why I always try and divorce compliance from professional development or learning. Compliance is what I need to do to be in the workforce to make sure I tick a box. Whereas learning is actually something that I'm recommitting to my arsenal of weapons that I have, if that makes sense. And that's why when we focus on it, we say we're a learning company, not necessarily a training company.
Okay. A question from Paulette. This is sort of a baited question, I'm guessing. Why Logan?
Paulette, that's such a great question. If everyone's seen me talk, especially on behalf of Queensland government or at an event, I will tell people, regardless of where I am in the world, that my name's Vu. I'm the founder of Go1, and we're a Logan company. I don't say we're a Brisbane company. I don't say we're a Queensland company. I don't say we're an Australian company. I say we're a Logan company. Two reasons. One is the obvious question that people will come and ask me, and I get asked it every single time, is why Logan? That allows me to start ranting on about what I'm about to talk about right now. Logan for me is, there's what I'll tell you, and there's what I'm going to tell the newspapers, okay? What I'll tell you is really simple. I live in Logan, right? So for me to be here at the office at 8 o'clock in the morning meant that I was able to leave the house at 7:55. I live at Rochedale South. I got to Underwood in 5 minutes, right? If 8 Mile Plains State School didn't exist, I'd get here in 3. So at the end of the day, I live in Logan. So that's one of the things I'm passionate about, the place. I practice as a GP here still once a fortnight in Logan. I live here in Logan. My parents owned a convenience store in Kingston for most of my childhood. And then when they sold that, they bought the convenience store on Parfrey Road in Rochedale South. So when it comes to my ties to Logan, they run pretty deep. But the second part of it for me is think of the business reasons why we run in Logan is really simple. Up until about a year ago, we had 2 offices here in Queensland. One here in Logan at 2908 Logan Road, so just down from the Big Gun Butcher. And the other one was in the middle of Fortitude Valley, 1,200 square metres of prime real estate in Fortitude Valley. By cancelling that lease and coming back here and with the support of Logan City Council, we were able to purchase the old Naughty But Nice here on Logan Road and convert it to the office that we have today. And I'd invite any of you to come down when it's legal to do so, to come down, and I can show you what we've done in transforming a big yellow adult shop into a workplace that I believe could be anywhere in the world. And then so when we bring people to come down here, I've brought ministers down here. I've brought people from ASX listed companies. I've brought people from Fortune 500 companies overseas into this office to actually show them that this is what we can build here and this is what we have here. The second thing I'd definitely touch on is that, Stu, my parents are Vietnamese migrants. And so it was not unusual for me to write a business plan when I was 16 and give it to my best mates, because my parents have always owned a business of some sort. So have my aunties, so have my uncles. And my dad used to tell me stories, and he said this to me probably when I was in about grade 10 grade 10. No, it wasn't. It was actually university. He said to me, Vu, the Steve Jobs of my generation left Vietnam in the 1970s when we all did. Because Vu, entrepreneurs are risk takers. Migrants are risk takers. Those who choose to leave their homes, their home countries, to go to a place where they may have no security, no understanding of what to do, no understanding of the language, in search of a better life, they're risk takers. They're also, therefore, naturally entrepreneurial. And I don't have to tell you that Logan is the most multiculturally diverse city in Australia. So for me, we have a battery that is untapped of entrepreneurs here in this city. It just needs to be plugged in.
That's brilliant. Love that. I have another question. I'm just going to be filtering questions now.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Steve from Dunright has asked, I do decontamination for COVID-19. Do you have a certificate course for training of decontamination of cleaning for COVID-19?
So, Steve, what I'll do is I'll give you my email. I'll give Stu's got my email. Stu, if you can pass it on to Steve.
Yep, for sure.
My answer is I don't know because we've got 70,000 courses, but I'll find out. The one thing I will point out is we don't provide RTO certified training because we're not competing in the vet market. The vet market is different in itself. The vet market has risks when it comes to regulation, and the vet market is very Australian. And for us to train 1 billion people globally, we can't be focused on certified training. So just to answer your question, Steve, 1, not sure, but I can find out for you. 2, we definitely don't provide certified training because that's a different kettle of fish altogether.
Awesome. Jill Patrick says, if people Google to find a particular course, how do they actually get to one of your courses rather than go direct to the supplier?
So I'll go through a few different things. When people Google to find a course, if it's a course that we know is popular, we'll probably be either doing SEO or digital marketing for that course to be able to appeal to people. Decontamination in COVID-19 is probably a pretty important course at the moment, and there is a chance that our digital marketing team of about 10 people might actually be running a campaign around that. So how do they find the course? It doesn't appear on Google unless we want it to, because it's kind of like Googling a song. You've got so many things that are competing against it. So if I Google, I don't know, the Beatles right now, there is a chance that Spotify will come up, but that's only by nature of the fact that they're massive in their Spotify. But Spotify isn't going to particularly advertise the Beatles too much at the moment. They'll advertise it through their other channels. How do you get onto one of the courses rather than direct to the supplier? So the suppliers put their courses onto our platform. We standardize it. So think about a music artist putting their song onto Spotify or putting it onto iTunes and then allowing the consumer to add it to their system. So our customers, we're a B2B business rather than a B2C business. So we actually have customers approach us to purchase our subscription, and then they're able to access the courses that are within it. So at the moment, we don't sell the courses a la carte, if you will, because the value is in the subscription. The other reason why we don't sell it a la carte is we also don't want to cannibalize our suppliers in terms of their offering individually. By bundling it with all these other 70,000 courses, it means that the people who purchase it not just for them, but for a whole bunch of other courses as well. So we're not cannibalizing their market. And that's really important. Our thing is to try and create that sort of cliche of a 1 + 1 = 3 equation.
So the courses that you have available, you've got, say, 70,000 courses. How many of those are available direct from the supplier online?
Oh, they all are. So as in how many of them, by direct from the supplier, do you mean as in that the supplier's added?
Yeah, so you provide a course from Done Right Pest Control, just because his name's in my head. Done Right Pest Control also has a website where he sells his course individually, just as that product. Is that happening at 70,000?
No, so it's a lot of the suppliers, because for us, we have to control who we put into it. So not anyone can just sign up and add their course at the moment, because our best way to do quality control is we can't vet the courses. We have to vet the suppliers, if that makes sense. So how the suppliers sell it individually in their own subscriptions or in their own way to their customers is completely up to them, is independent of us. They're just adding us to themselves to our library to be able to A, get a supplementary revenue stream, or B, we actually become their primary revenue stream.
Yep. Okay. You talked about this, the Logan's multicultural battery of entrepreneurs. Any thoughts on how we tap into that? This is people asking that.
Yeah. Good old Justin. Good to hear from you, Justin. Sorry I haven't replied to your text recently, mate. Hey, look, I don't have a specific answer for it, but I've got one simple thought, right? Entrepreneurs, most of the ones that you'll come across, aren't looking for handouts; they're looking for hands up, right? So at the end of the day, when I talk to state government, when I talk to federal government, I'm saying to them, don't give us grants, give us revenue, right? Support us as a business. Don't give us charity if you can. I mean, look, in times like this, sure, we'll take grants, we'll take concessions. But as a principle, revenue contracts trump grants, grants trump nothing. And at the end of the day, it's actually we can encourage people to run their own businesses, but I guarantee you they already are. It's just working out how do we buy from them. how do we add them to our own supply chains? The example for me here is that we have a Japanese restaurant across the road that we purchase Japanese food for our entire staff every Friday. I mean, at the moment, it's hard to do, but we do that rather than ordering via Uber Eats or anything like that, because it just means that we're supporting a local business. Our coffees that we have here in the office are sourced here locally from a roaster here in Logan. So as a business, we're trying to think about those 1%ers that we could be doing to actually support some of these smaller businesses in the local area. And then off the back of that, that will inevitably support some of these businesses that are started by our massive migrant population. So Justin, my answer to you is that it's not necessarily about tapping into it and getting them started. I think it's about supporting them and getting them to grow.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting point there that integration with the market is one of those pits that I think, having seen quite a lot of those businesses, that you're right, they're actually doing the business, but there's not that integration with the marketplace.
And I'd say, guys, you know, coronavirus, what's happening at the moment, I think we are going to see a massive change. For anyone who expects the world to go back to the way it was in January 2020, it's different. Like the fact that the government's going to have $1 trillion deficit is one example of why it's going to be different, right? But it also means that onshore and local manufacturing is going to become a thing. And we're going to need to service that from a supply chain point of view, from employment point of view, from innovation point of view. So I think I'm positive that as the dust settles on what happens here, all that coronavirus will have done is act as a catalyst to accelerate some of the changes we knew that were going to have to happen. You know, I'm a firm believer, if you guys have come across Tony in Substation 33, if you've come across Climate Smart Schools down at Marsden, what that Brett's doing, I think it's important to understand we actually have a lot of great opportunities here in Logan that are just waiting to be lit to be able to actually get up there and take off. And I think one of the things that it comes back to is that's going to benefit our broader community as those supply chains grow as well.
Going on from the question you talking about supporting local businesses, from Robert, you mentioned that your focus is on larger companies. Do you have packages for sole traders here in Logan?
It's a really good question, and I'm going to keep it just to people on this call. And Stu, being the great representative of the local community as you've been, has actually asked me about this before, and we're working on it with Queensland Government. So the challenge that we have at this point in time is our product, friendly isn't the right word, but it's not geared towards being able to provide it, like the way it is today is not geared towards being able to provide it to a small business or sole trader today, right? But we're working on Queensland Government where, touch wood, within the next few weeks, we'll have something that we can do in partnership with the Queensland Government where it'll be offered to every small business, who, no matter who they are. And please keep this between the 25 of us on this call.
No, that's all right. I spoke to Shannon and she actually said to me without prompting that there is a deal going ahead with Go One.
There you go. And
so I didn't mention it.
Yes, but what we're doing is we're looking to be able to work with the Queensland Government to provide our training to free to every small business in Queensland. That's what we're looking
totally
to do.
Amazing.
We can't provide it 100% for free because we have to pay our suppliers. So what we're looking at doing we're actually going to do it at below cost, in that we'll dip into our pocket to subsidise some of it, to provide it to every small business in the state. Because my big thing that it comes back to, Stu, and we've had this conversation personally, is if we can't be productive, if we work in tourism or hospitality or in a business that right now it may be illegal to do our business, how are we going to continue to be productive? I go back to that core thesis, learning. How do we go back to our jobs in whatever period of time, actually in a better position than we left it? And the answer is going to come back from upskilling ourselves during this point in time. If I'm a small business, how do I build up my skills? How do I improve my product? How do I improve my service offering so that when the dust does settle, I've got new skills to do what I do? So, you know, the key catchphrase I've been using with people, earn or learn.
Love it. Hey, Jill from 96.5 again. How did you find the suppliers on a global basis? How did you build up to that?
So I mentioned we started off a catalog of 200, right? And this is the same hustle mentality that we had when it came to door-to-door knocking to build our first 300 customers for building websites. They weren't coming to us. We had to go to them, Jill. We had to be the ones who bent over backwards. We had to be the ones who provided value up front and wore the risk. So we had to go and pre-purchase and pay stick a price for that content that we provided to Foxtel. Because by getting Foxtel as a customer, I can now tell a story like we are today and say Foxtel is a customer, which then allows us to get that next customer, which then allows us to get that credibility to then attract other suppliers. And it becomes that flywheel that you try and build as you try and get momentum. So my answer is, today, how do we find global suppliers? It's pretty simple. A customer will come to me and say, Vu, I need hand hygiene courses in Italian. And I'll go to someone in our content team, which has about 30 strong. We'll go to a supplier in Italy and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Supplier, we have 2 million people who could potentially consume your content today. How about we do a deal, right? So we leverage our growth that we've had to date. But early on, when you've got nothing to leverage, you've got to build that leverage yourself. And that's where we ended up, having to find different ways to be able to get those customers to be able to build up. And that's where, as a marketplace, the Uber drivers actually help build Uber, and the passengers help build Uber. And then it just keeps building and building and building, though they're probably not the best example to use.
Yeah. I've got a question, and it comes down to focus. You're still operating as a GP.
Yep.
Chris is traveling the world doing stuff.
Not at the moment.
Well, nobody's traveling the world at the moment, but Chris and Andrew are all out doing stuff. How did you manage the focus of business and uni, and now business and business?
I think managing the focus of business and uni meant that we were able to manage the business and business side of things a lot better, right?
Right. So you learned those skills there.
So as we learned the skills of trying to build our business while doing our university degree, when Andrew said, hey, I'm going to move to Oxford for 2 years and do my Rhodes Scholarship, all three of us were like, the two of us were like, yeah, sure. Why not? Like, there's, and especially like, look, would I do that now that I've got a, 14-month-old daughter and a mortgage? No. Nor would I take out 8 credit cards with 40 grand each on them. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, it's that idea of wanting to have our cake and eat it too, but in a good way, in a productive way. I do general practice once a week, once a fortnight, not because I have to, but because I want to. And if I can share with you very briefly why. I do it for me. It's really important. When you own and run your own business, you think about nothing other than your business every single day, every single minute of the week. And until we had our daughter, that was all I would think about. And general practice, going into GP land, Stu, I can't check my phone. I can't check my emails. I've got to focus on the person in front of me, right? I have to focus on my patient. And patients don't realize this, but they're doing a lot more for me than I am doing for them, because they give me the opportunity to switch gears for 8 hours in a week where I don't have to think about the business. And that for me is a form of mindfulness. So if anyone's ever done any mindfulness exercises or any form of meditation, that's what I do in general practice. The other thing is it's incredibly grounding. The worst problem that a patient will have when I'm in general practice will be nowhere near the worst problem that I have in Go One.
Right. It is an interesting thing, because I do find a lot of the businesses that I work with, where they've got diversification of income streams, they do tend to have a stronger focus than, I guess, there's the single-minded focus, and then there's the multidisciplinary focus. And I know that that's something that's coming out of, certainly it was leading up to the Olympics, the last Olympics, where interdisciplinary coaches were working with different teams to try and understand what's the driving force in the rowing team versus the sailing team versus the sprinters versus the shot putters, and can we learn from each other? And I think that businesses that focus on multiple things, would you find that if you had your opportunity to just do one thing or do 2 or 3 things for yourself, what would that be?
I don't think you'll ever take me out of general practice, and I don't think you'll ever find me in there full time. So that's the first thing I'm going to say to you. Forgive me if anyone on this call is a patient or as a family member who's a patient of mine, because I know we're all from Logan, and Logan's a small place. But I'll say this to you. No one ever comes to a GP and says, life is great. Things are perfect. I don't have any problems, right? It's a very tolling job to do. So for me, the reason why I do it is because I enjoy it. But could I do it 5 days a week? My honest answer is no. I couldn't do it 5 days a week and care about my patients as much as I do today if I did it 5 days a week. And that's an honest to God answer. You learn if I did do it 5 days a week, I'd have to work out how to protect myself emotionally and be able to disconnect myself from these engagements. But when it's once a week, I can give it my all. I think the other side of it is that medicine has helped my ability to work in Go One and vice versa. If you can survive your intern year at the Royal Brisbane Hospital, you can survive anything. All right.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. But the second part of it is that my focus in Go One is around sales. So me learning how to sell has actually helped me being able to work out how to communicate better to my patients. And me communicating with my patients has actually helped me to sell better. Because at the end of the day, the best sale I can make during cold and flu season, excluding coronavirus, is actually talking to you, Stu, as a patient, taking the time to explain to you that it's a viral infection and antibiotics will do nothing, and having you go home with nothing in your hands, but understand that the best thing for you to do is rest, take it easy, and give your body a chance to recover. That's the best sale I can make because I'm not building up antibiotic resistance in the community and I'm educating you at the same time. But if you don't trust me and if I haven't been able to make that sale, you're going to walk out and you're going to find another doctor and try and get antibiotics off them.
Yeah.
So it's a very symbiotic relationship between the two different roles, and I really enjoy it.
All right. Stuart, a question from Stuart Ailing. When do you get to a point of not adding competing courses that are on the same topic? Obviously, with 70,000 courses, how many courses do you have on Excel? It must be a lot.
We're beyond that. So, like, I think that's important. Like, I think, and this is why the diversification and choice story is really important. This is why putting the consumer or the end user at the center is really important. We're not Marriott.com, we're Booking.com. We're TripAdvisor. So at the end of the day, that diversification story, some people will call it duplication. I'll call it diversification, because instead of going and purchasing one course on each topic from the same provider, you could actually choose multiple courses from multiple different providers to cover the different OH&S topics you have. So I just realized I'm holding a cricket ball.
I saw the cricket ball pop up. I wasn't going to say anything, but you've said it now. So
yeah, that's right. So the answer, sorry, is that we do have duplication, but duplication is better off being positioned as diversification, because an OH&S course for your business may be very different to an OH&S course for my business. And by providing you choice, you can have the best of both worlds.
All right, we're coming up to the hour mark, and I think we've answered pretty much all the questions. I will ask one last question, which and you have kind of already answered it, but in this current environment, earn or learn, everyone being locked down, we have seen that pretty much across the board, we're being forced to do things that we should have already done. Is this the time to pivot if that is what was going to happen anyway? Is this the time to diversify if that was what was going to happen anyway?
I think it's all going to be specific to businesses, each business individually, obviously. I think if there's a time and a reason to do something that you've been meaning to do, whether it be change your business or whether it be to mow your grass, it's do it now, right? And the reason why I say that is because the world is changing, and at least what you did before is probably not going to be relevant in some way or form, if that makes sense. It's going to need to be different in some way or form. So I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. What I'm saying is if your gut is telling you as an entrepreneur that I should be doing something different, now's the time to do it if you can't be productive. Because one of the analogy that I'll use is that as entrepreneurs, we all expect high performance of ourselves, right? Do you expect high performance for yourself, mate?
Obviously.
You mentioned the Olympics before. So let's parallel this to an athlete, someone like Usain Bolt, right? Usain Bolt has to be at high performance for about 40 seconds in a given month. He'll run 4 races, each at 10 seconds. So my question to you is, what's he doing for the other 30 days of the month? What's he doing for the rest of the time? And any athlete you talk to will say they're at high performance when they have to perform. And the other 99% of the time they're spending on training and recovery.
Yep.
So what I'm urging everyone who owns a business today who is being affected by coronavirus or can't be productive in running their business, I would say focus on training and recovery. Recovery in terms of take this time, you'll never have this period of time again in a very long time to be able to recover and focus on yourself, focus on your family, do the things that are important and get them done. The second thing in terms of training, I don't mean in terms of go on, do a course and learn something. I mean in terms of self-improvement, whether it be in yourself or in your business. So pivoting may be one of those things. At the end of the day, we have to be productive, and that training and recovery part of it in terms of what's happening right now with coronavirus is probably the most important thing to think about.
Okay. I think that's very, very wise. Hey, Vu, one last question, if I can sneak it in.
Yeah, go for it.
Joanna Apps, do you have plans to increase tech content such as AWS infrastructure as code, configuration management, DevOps, etc.?
Whole bunch of it. Like so the technical skills is increasing significantly, and it will continue to increase because we're seeing, if we think about, remember how I said before, coronavirus is going to be a catalyst, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this skills transition that we talk about that's going to happen over the next 10 years is going to happen in 3. Right? Like that's just what's going to happen. Everything that you think about that was going to happen over the course of 10 years either isn't going to happen or it's going to happen 3 times faster. I'm choosing that as an arbitrary number.
Yeah.
We were very fortunate in that our Series A was led by Seek. So they led our $12 million Series A. And we're the first Australian company to receive VC backing from Microsoft. So that was about a $30 million round about a year ago. And so we've gotten insights into Microsoft and Seek's sort of operations and where their view of the world is. Microsoft is really focusing on education and learning, thus their investment in us. And Seek can give us an indication of what employers are thinking and what employees are trying to do. And all of that goes back to something really simple. That skills transition is going to accelerate.
Yep. If you could give advice to a year 11 or 12 student now, and this isn't a tough time to be giving them advice, but if you were trying to do what you were doing now, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't be scared. What do you got to lose? Like, you got to be fearless. Like, year 11 and 12, worst case scenario is we wasted our time, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, for me, it's sweat equity is all I'm giving up, right? It's not an opportunity cost to go to university. It's not an opportunity cost in terms of getting another job outside of maybe, a part-time job in Woolies. And I think as parents, most people will sit there and go, I'm hoping is that you would back your kids to actually have a go at something. And there is no better time to have a go than during high school and during university. So my answer is be fearless.
Awesome. Hey, look, thank you very much for your time, Vu. We're just coming up on the hour. I want to make a big thank you to Vu and Go One. They're great advocates in the community. They do a lot of stuff. Helping promote the innovation space as well. The Chamber of Commerce, as I said, if you are not a member or if you're not on the newsletter, I'm pretty sure you are if you're on this call, but please tell everybody else to join. But we are using it as a way of getting information out to people. I feel that with this webinar has been recorded and we'll make it available live. The next event we had scheduled in was for the 13th of May. It's the annual Mabel Park State High School and Beacon Foundation Industry Breakfast. This is going to be, I've just been sitting here thinking about how it's going to work. And it's going to be super cool because we will have the kids actually present exactly how Vu has presented today. They will get a chance to talk to the entire room of people via Zoom. I've got to clear that with Mabel Park and make sure they're okay with it. But look, these are things that should have happened anyway. As everyone's pointing out, coronavirus is accelerating the changes that were going to happen. And this is one of those, I think, should be a great opportunity to connect with a school and the business community on a Zoom level. It could be very, very cool. Stay tuned. We will send out more information. I know Robert's probably shaking his head at me at the moment going, what are you doing announcing that already? But it's going to be fun. And look, Vu, thank you so much. We hope to continue working with you in the future and all the stuff that's going on with Go One. And we're really excited about what Shannon shared with me, that there may be some sort of ability, some sort of portal available for the Go One content for small businesses. And we look forward to learning while we can't earn.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me, guys. Please stay safe. And I know I'm not doing it at the moment, but stay home. We need to look after those in the community, particularly the older ones. So thank you very much, Stu, and thanks for having me.
All right. Until next time, we'll catch you soon.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.